working nation this morning for thousands of Kenyans as public service operators keep to their word and stay off the roads. And the matatus that are available have hiked their fares in various places across the country. Well, all this in protest of the government's reintroduction of the stringent Michuki rules. Now, the government hopes to restore safety and sanity on the roads, but PSV owners say the rules are too draconian and punitive. Well, either way, it is a crisis on the roads for commuters this morning. And as always, we've got all sides covered for you on NTV Today. Good morning, I'm Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you live from the Nation Centre. Now, I will have an in-studio discussion about the boycott and, of course, we'll be live from across the country. Sharon Baranga is doing the rounds on the streets of Nairobi. Also, Bernard Ojwang is in the county of Migori. Martin Waura is following the public transport crisis in Murang'a. And we're also watching the other counties as well, including Mombasa, Baringo and others. All right, let's first start though with Sharon Baranga, who is on Jogo Road. Sharon, bring us the very latest. Paint a picture on what is happening this morning.
It has been a tough morning for most Nairobi residents who had to walk to their various destinations because there were simply no matatus. We had very few of them in operation, and we talked to some of the people who say that they woke up as early as 4 a.m. They were on the various stages as early as 5 a.m. and up to now they're still stranded. We managed to walk with some all the way from the junction heading towards Buruburu Estate to City Stadium, and we still have some who are still walking, though some of them say they are not so sure if they are going to make such a journey tomorrow if the matatu crackdown persists. Now, most of them have had to dig deep into their pockets to pay more. Some of them say that a journey that always takes 100 shillings, they've had to pay around 1,200 shillings. Some of the Ubers and Taxifys have been unavailable for the better part of the morning, and all this is in an effort by the government to ensure that sanity is restored on our roads, as well as cut down on the number of accidents that we have been experiencing. Now, also a number of people have withdrawn their vehicles from the roads. That has resulted to very few that are working, and we have a number of private vehicles that are offering transport for people, although you also have to pay more. Some private vehicles have been ferrying people all the way from Buruburu to town at a fee of 500 shillings. Other than that, the people say that it is for their own good, and all matatus should comply with the traffic rules. Back to you, studio.
All right, Sharon, thanks very much indeed for that update. More from you later on. Let's cross over now to Migori County to get a sense of what is happening there. We have NTV's Bernard Ojwang. Bernard, what can you tell us?
Well, thank you very much, Smriti. We are here in Wendo town, to be precise, Wendo bus terminus, whereby, as you can see, on a normal day, here is usually packed with PSV vehicles. But today, things have changed following the ongoing crackdown. And remember what has been, we were here since morning, and what's going on here is passengers are stranded, and they are being forced to pay dearly. Initially, there before, from here up to Migori town, that is from Wendo to Migori town, it used to be 60 bob, but today it has tripled itself, forcing border operators at least to get more, because using border for you to use border from Wendo to Migori, you are going to, most of the passengers here whom we managed to talk to, they are paying 400 shillings. And from here to Rongo, the same applies. From here to Rongo, bodaboda operators, they take 500 shillings, but this following the ongoing crackdown. And now we are just going to talk to some of the stranded passengers here. Just tell us what is how the situation here, what they need. Join me here. Okay, tell us how is the situation here?
Actually, the situation is very worse due to the fact that most of us came here very early in the morning at 6:30 a.m. and up to now we are still stranded. Actually, everybody, they have hiked the price, and right now we are stranded. You don't know where we are heading to, where we are going to. Actually, it is a very good thing, but the way the government has put it, it is now cracking down on the citizen. And now we are calling upon the government to look into our pockets, because right now it is only we have few vehicles, and those people are really harvesting heavily from the citizen. And right now we are just begging the government to look on the other side, even though it is a good thing. But again, we are calling upon the government to look onto our side. Actually, kila siku pele huwa kutoka hapa pale Rongo huwa tunalipa shilingi 50, lakini sasa hii kutoka huko tunalipa shilingi 200 ama 300. So we are really crying. Even watu wale wenye wanaenda kazi sasa hii, wale wanaenda kwa hospitali kwa kazi wamekwama hapa.
Do you think it's a good move?
Actually, it is a good move, but now it should be taken pole pole.
Well, thank you very much. I'll talk to another person here. Could you just, how is the situation?
Mimi nasema hivi, mimi nataka Matiang'i na Haji wakasa hii kamba kabisa, kwa maana gari imeua watu sana kwa barabara. Matiang'i na Haji wakasa hii kamba, si wasiwachi. Wasiwachi. 2022 Ruto ndio.
Well, thank you very much. I'll talk to another person here. Okay, could you just please tell us the situation? You have been told most of the passengers here are stranded.
Vile hali ilivyo kutoka asubuhi saa 12, hali imekuwa ngumu, kusafiri imekuwa ngumu, bei imeongezeka na abiria wa kawaida huwa wanaumia. Lakini hata kwa sasa tungeomba serikali kile ambacho angetufanyia, angeregeza kama kidogo ili wenye wanasafiri wasafiri, biashara iendelee. Hata taxi yenyewe hata hapa mahali tulipo hakuna taxi inaendelea hata kwa kaunti yetu. Yenyewe ningeomba hata yenyewe angalau wameweka sheria, lakini kila jambo ambalo wangefanya, kwa sababu hii sekta imeajiri watu wengi sana. Na serikali inasema ya kwamba inataka kubuni nafasi ya kazi, lakini wakituwekea hivi inamaanisha kwamba badala ya kubuni nafasi wanaachisa wengine kazi. Na tungependa ifanyike hivi, wangetafuta maoni kwa kila sekta. Wangeenda kwa sekta ya barabara, wangetafuta maoni huko. Wangeenda kwa wenye wa magari, wangetafuta maoni. Hata wenye wako kwa wanadumu, hata wadumu wa matatu wangetafuta maoni kwao. Ili hao nao ili hata sisi wananchi wa kawaida tungekitishwa chini ili tuangalie, tuone, tuungane serikali, tuangalie ni mahali gani ambayo serikali inaumia kuliko kufanya hivi. Kwa sababu sasa hivi hata tukiangalia tax yenyewe, hata kile ambacho Kenya itapoteza itakuwa mingi sana.
Well, thank you very much, Smriti. We were talking to some of the passengers here and also Wendo town residents speaking there. They are saying that the government should come up. Some of them are appreciating, and some of them are saying the government should at least come up with another solution, at least to curb road accidents. And this is not only affecting passengers here, but also affecting tax collection in Migori, Homa Bay, and even Kisii counties. And remember, currently nothing is going on here. The business along all at these bus terminals has been paralyzed, and even transport operations. Remember, we'll be moving along Kisii Migori Highway, where traffic officers are, and we'll be giving you more information as they unfold. Back to you.
All right, Bernard Ojwang coming to us live from Migori County with that update. Thanks very much. And as you said, of course, more from you later. Clearly, a very desperate situation out on the streets in various counties. Let's take you to the coast region, and that is Mombasa County, to get a sense of what's happening there. We've got some pictures for you. These are indeed live pictures. You can see a number of people walking along the roads. Those are likely commuters who have been forced to find alternate means to get to their destinations. A police officer there with his motorbike directing the traffic. It does look rather busy, as I said, on the streets. So similar in Mombasa, where commuters being forced to walk, prices higher than normal. Of course, as the situation was in Migori, private vehicles offering to give lifts. That may be the case in other counties. We'll have to get a check on that. But here at the coast, a lot of people just either stranded or making their own way. And as and when we can get more details from Mombasa, we'll bring you the latest from there.
Interview saya ama bado?
All right, what you're seeing on your screens, several people on the roadsides in the county of Mombasa, at least a certain area in Mombasa. Still very busy on the road with private vehicles, but on the roadside, a number of what are likely to be commuters. And this all as a result of the reintroduction of the Michuki rules as the government officially kicks off its countrywide crackdown on non-compliant matatus. Of course, this has resulted in operators withdrawing their vehicles from the roads in response to this, arguing that the crackdown and of course the new regulations to promote safety on the roads are too draconian and too punitive as well. So we on NTV Today are bringing you the very latest from across the country as this crackdown has been put in place. Well, with the deadline for the public service vehicles to comply with the Michuki rules set to, or rather it has already lapsed, matatu owners have been in a race against time to comply, even as the government insists that it will carry out that crackdown on vehicles that fail to do so. Now, some of the matatu owners are calling for an extension of the deadline to ensure full compliance. Here's Silas Apollo with more details.
Some of the scenes that characterized garages and matatu yards in the city centre today. Owners in a rush to have their vehicles compliant to the regulations set by the government. The task today was to fit in safety belts in the matatus, remove paint and tint on the windows and doors, otherwise known as graffiti, as well as install speed governors. Those who spoke to NTV say they hope to have met the deadline come tomorrow to avoid a collision with the government and even avoid a possible shutdown of the public transport system. Those doing the installations and the paint jobs are making a harvest.
Biashara imekuwa booming kabisa na watu wamecomply, wamekubali cause tunaelekea festivities, watu wa comply.
Tumecomply na rules zote na tuna hope kesho magari isishikwe kama iko compliant.
Kazi imeendelea kwa usalama na utaratibu, lakini parking hatuna sababu gari ni mingi sana. Gari zinakuja kwa rangi, mambo ya hii matia Michuki iko mingi.
With just few hours to the lapse of the deadline set by the government, most matatu operators say they're in a race to meet the deadlines, but with the rider calling for more time. The rush comes barely a day after the Federation of Public Transport sector warned of a closure of the public transport to allow members comply with the rules. But elsewhere in Samburu, the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, remained adamant on the deadline, promising tough action for non-compliance.
Kifika Jumatatu kama unafanya kazi ya PSV na gari yako haiko sawa sawa, tafuta kitu kingine ya kufanya, sababu hatutakubali gari ambayo haina mambo yote ambayo sheria ina demand lazima iwe nayo.
The government says that the reintroduction of the rules is to restore sanity on the roads and reduce the ever-increasing cases of road accidents. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has said that the clampdown will be continuous and not like previous instances where laxity on the part of law enforcers encouraged matatu owners and crew to flout rules. Some leaders have, however, asked the government to go slow on the matatus and blame the police for sleeping on the job despite the laws being in existence.
Niko against ile harassment ya vijana wetu wale wanafanya kazi kwa zile sheria ambazo hazizuii accident zifanyike. Mimi nakumbuka rais wetu akipeana ruhusa matatu ziwekwe graffiti. Na akasema hizo kuweka graffiti inasaidia vijana wetu wanapata kitu kwa ile kazi wanafanya, na ile shida kubwa tuko nayo hapa Kenya sasa hii ni unemployment ya vijana wetu.
Silas Apollo, NTV.
All right, in a moment we'll bring you more live pictures from across the country to give you a sense of what's happening on the roads. As we have mentioned, the matatu crackdown is on, all in a bid for road safety. And it is all about the reintroduction of those stringent Michuki rules that the PSV operators are against. But let's delve deeper into this conversation and get a different side of the story. With me now here in studio at the Nation Centre, my two guests, Charles Owino, the Director of Corporate Communication Affairs, the National Police Service, and also beside me is Timothy Kelly, the Head of Business, AA Kenya. Gentlemen, pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. So as we've seen from those pictures, very few matatus on the roads. The ones that are there are hiking their prices, almost doubling the fares for passengers. Many Kenyans forced to walk or find alternate means. It really is a crisis. I'll begin with you, Mr. Owino. Give us your comment first on what's happening this morning.
Thank you so much. I think you've heard someone say clearly, a leader saying that policemen have slept on the job. And the reason why he's saying that we have slept on the job is because regulations exist and there's belief that we have not enforced those regulations. Time was given for matatus to comply. It's not the first time. In 2006, we had the same incident where people had to comply. And in 2006, you remember, most of these items were new. For example, even installing the speed governors and the seat belts was quite a new thing. What we are doing now is not new, it's something which has been done before. So I think it is to the interest of all Kenyans to ensure that we have some sanity and order in the road. I believe there are very many Kenyans who would want to run transport business, but they cannot because there's total chaos and there's total disorder. What I would ask Kenyans is that it's an opportunity for them to sacrifice. Nothing comes easy. Even when you have big weight like mine, for you to become like you, you have to put a lot of effort. There is no gain without pain. So some of the pains that they may go through is short-lived, but it will bear fruit. The only thing we can say is that the matatu owners who think that they can go on strike, it's just a matter of time because we will make a decision. Because it's an absolute right to be licensed to run a circle. If you feel that you don't want to comply to the rules, well and good, you can keep your matatu at home. You can sell it to somebody who wants to run the business. And I think within some times, as we enforce this, if you intentionally, if you keep your matatu at home because you are not compliant and maybe you cannot raise enough money immediately, that's well and good. But if you are keeping your matatu at home in order to circumvent and push the government and the people to allow you continue with the kind of impunity that we have, then the next thing that may happen is you may lose your SACCO license through NTSA, and not just lose your SACCO license. You may end up even the vehicles that are in that SACCO may be blacklisted, and it will be up to you. So what we are saying is that we are going to enforce this law, and we are happy that we have a committed CS, and the IG is equally committed on this matter. So what we can ask Kenyans generally is vumilia, so that we can be able to work on this impunity once and for all.
Timothy, the government says this is about fighting impunity, safety on the roads, and of course observing the rule of law. With regard to safety, this perhaps is where AA Kenya comes into this. What's your opinion on the situation?
I think anytime there's no order in any part of our society or any part of our life, it's a recipe for chaos. And I think as AA Kenya, as champions of road safety, we support this agenda, that there should be order on our roads. To the family that lost a beloved one on a road accident, and we've had very bad and grisly accidents in the last couple of months, to them, this conversation is totally different. It's not about walking to work. It's not about being charged higher, which we know here says, I think it's illegal to charge higher. And I think it's wrong to take advantage of a situation as it is. But for that family that lost a dear one, that lost a source of livelihood because the breadwinner died because they were not in a safety belt and there was chaos on the road, this conversation is totally different. And we do support that there should be order on the road, all the way from the learner driver training, all the way through to the road, customer service, taking care of one another, minding each other on the road. There should be order on the road. If we had enough order on the road, even some of the traffic jam you see would not be existence.
Mr. Owino, why now? Why are we reintroducing the Michuki rules now after thousands of lives have been lost?
I think we have kind of a bad behavior as a community. I've always said that you cannot have a policeman behind each and every person. These rules have been there. Policemen have been arresting people and taking them to court. But you can see the impunity that is there amongst the practitioners, because when there is chaos and this disorder, a number of people gain through chaos and disorder, including even the policemen to a larger extent, because when people are not complying, then you have an opportunity to bargain with anyone and say, yes, I've not done this, can I do this? Even the excess that is carried on vehicles, it's not to advantage of the owner of the vehicle. There are people who divide, share the spoil, the excess money, because if your matatu is 14 in the evening, the conductor and the driver will give you costs, including costs telling you this one we gave a policeman. So what's happening is everyone must comply, and when they comply, then nobody has an opportunity. The conductor has no opportunity to steal from you. Even the policeman who wants to pick a bribe has no opportunity. So we cannot say, why now? Why now? Because all of us, all the machinery of the state is in agreement that this must be stopped. And I can tell you, you cannot stop this as an individual. I can tell you, even the Inspector General at his level, without the support of everyone in the country, he can't do it. No, leave about the constable. Even the Inspector General as an individual cannot do this. So it's not a matter of now. It's a matter of collective responsibility. Whatever we do requires collective responsibility and goodwill from all of us. Unless you have that, then you can't go far.
But you talk about goodwill from all of us. No doubt that obviously must include the PSVs.
Yes.
But at the moment, they're not showing the kind of goodwill that perhaps you hoped they would show, because they are against the crackdown.
And that is why...
So how do we move forward?
And that is why all of us has come out as a country to ensure that there's compliance with these rules. And we are putting it very tough to our officers that these rules must be complied with. And that is why you find everyone is out. You remember what happened during the Michuki period. I don't need to say, I'm not a politician. Sometimes what happens, they put a lot of pressure. Like, for example, now it's an exam period. So somebody would be taking advantage of the exam period to buy sympathy. And then what would happen? If there is a political statement that tells you stop it, then who are you to stop it? But if we have the goodwill, when I talk about the goodwill, we talk about all the chain of management as a state. The goodwill is there, and I can tell you the goodwill is there. So nobody is going to come up to tell us tomorrow, oh, because of this, stop it.
Right.
Yes.
Timothy, the goodwill may be there on the part of the government and the various authorities involved, but how can we move forward if we don't have the PSVs on the same side as the government?
I think it would be important to bring them on board, but let me just say this before I answer that, to say there's a proverb that says that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. I think there's no better time for us to move forward. And what we are saying is that it is not all PSVs that are not on board. There's some matatus. I came today morning, I saw some matatus on the road. It's not all of them who have refused to comply. It's just a few that want to take advantage of the chaos and be able to do business outside that kind of order. So I wouldn't entirely say they're not all on board. And I'm saying that because we've also worked with a lot of PSVs, we've worked with a lot of border operators, and right now we have some programs that we're doing to train them on the highway code, to train them on the theoretical part of driving, and also trying to test them so that we can get them licensed. I'm happy part of the conversation that the CS began was to say he wants to give them a timeline by end of, I think, January next year, so that they can be orderly and that sector can also be taken in an orderly way. So I cannot say that they are all entirely not on board. Right. There are some of them who are on board. The majority, of course, will want to not to comply because they want to take advantage of that. But I think any Kenyan of goodwill, any Kenyan who is patriotic, any Kenyan who has seen what has happened in the last couple of months on our roads would be willing and happy to come on board this journey to say, let us all make Kenya safe. And there is no better time than now when we are going to the festivities. There's going to be a lot of movement from town to up country and also within towns. So there's no better time for us to get order on our roads than now. Because what are we expecting? If we don't do this now, then it means that we are going to be waking up every other day to news of matatus rolling or personal vehicles rolling and everybody on the road being exposed to this kind of danger. And at times, it's not just the person causing the chaos that is in danger. You could be driving your vehicle, observing all the traffic rules, but somebody else, because of their disorder, they come to your lane and they hit you, and you could be a victim.
All right, what measures have been put in place, if any, to ensure that the police don't take undue advantage of this situation with regard to the crackdown?
It's very practical. We have a number of measures that we've taken. One, we not only have the policemen that you see on the road, we have different teams that are monitoring what the police on the road are doing. And at the end of the day, if there will be any policeman who will attempt to pick a bribe or do something, you will see us arresting him and taking him to court. Today, there is no shortcut about it. So we've put in a number of people.
So you've got police to watch the police?
Not necessarily. We have so many institutions that watch on the police. We have EACC, we have Criminal Investigations Department, which is part of police. And always the police watch the police in a system where people have become so corrupt, like in our system, our country, where people believe in corruption. You know, for a very long time, what people look at is how much money you have. People don't look at where you've gotten your money from. Right. Nobody cares where you've gotten your money from. We had gone that far. And that is why you've seen the sitting director of CID has put on a lot of crackdown on corruption, to an extent that people go crying, saying, no, that is not your duty, it's another person's duty. You wonder whose duty it is. So I'm putting it very, very clearly that we are not only having traffic police officers on the road and other senior officers on the road, because everyone has come out, including the regional bosses, because they rarely come out on the road, but they are out to supervise on this until that level that we will accept that this is the right thing for us to do, until it becomes normal. At this stage, there are so many people still fighting. So we have a number of officers on the road, apart from the traffic police officers expected to check. There will also be others who will check impromptu. Right. Not in civilian, but also in uniform. For example, you will find a team visiting Naivasha. They don't come from Naivasha. They have a senior officer in the team, and they stop randomly to check if what other officers are doing, they are complying to. Because, for example, people who are used to a particular route, they can even easily be friends. Right. So we must keep on checking. But I can assure you, and I want to tell you a very interesting story. If our CS managed to stop stealing for examination, and even managed to ensure that you get the actual grade that you deserve, that if nobody gets 80% and the highest is 60, then the highest that year will get a B minus. So I want to believe that even what we are doing today with the support, I'm quite sure that we are going to succeed and go beyond where we were. And secondly, we are doing it at a very right time. We are doing it when we don't have any campaigns, political campaigns.
Right.
So we are safe.
Okay, well,
yes.
let's, we'll hopefully get some live footage of various police on the ground to also get a sense of the work that they're doing. But first, let us go to the county of Murang'a to get a sense of what's happening there. Our reporter on the ground is NTV's Martin Wara. Martin, what's happening?
Thank you, Smriti. And as I have earlier said, as I have said, we are coming live from the main matatu terminus in Murang'a. On any normal day, this stage is always full of matatus, over 300. But for today, it is empty. Stranded passengers, and to make the matter worse, the fares have been increased. Going to Nairobi, on a normal day, it's always 200 shillings. But today, it is up by 100 shillings to 300. Now, the matatus going to Thika, they always charge 100 shillings, but for today they are charging 200 shillings. Now, I've had the opportunity to talk to a few of the stranded passengers. Tafadhali tuambie majina yako na ulikuwa umekuja fanya nini?
Hello, my name is Nathan Mwaura. I am an advocate of the High Court. I'm currently in Murang'a at the moment, and there's a traffic crisis. Ordinarily, what usually happens at this stage is that there's a variety of matatus, but at this juncture, we just have a few service providers at the moment. So it's a crisis, and you can see there are lots of passengers stranded at the bus stop.
Maybe how did you make it to this place? And
actually, I woke up at 4:30 in order to make it to court on time. I was in Murang'a at around 7:30 because I didn't want to take chances. Because if I had taken chances, then that would have meant coming to work late. So to beat the crisis, one has to wake up very early at this point.
Maybe do you support this crackdown on matatus?
I totally support the crackdown because this ultimately boils down to our safety. The moment you have a safety belt or a matatu has a speed governor, this is for your safety and it's for the safety of every Kenyan. Yes.
Thank you so much for your views. Okay. We are joined by another traveler. Your name, please?
My name is Michuki Josiah, traveling to Nairobi. Yes.
For how long have you been here?
I've been here for 3 hours. I came here, I woke up at 4 o'clock very early in the morning so that I can catch up a matatu to Nairobi. But when I came to the stage, you can see the problems are here. No vehicles are all over. You cannot find anything, so we are stranded.
As a passenger, do you support this crackdown?
Well, I thought I support this crackdown because it's for our own safety. We've seen the accidents that have been happening all over. So we are actually congratulating the government for this step. So we are saying these measures should continue, this crackdown should go on, and the matatu operator should adhere to the laws so that we, the passengers, can be safe. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, the few matatus that are here, people are scrambling for the space. But we hope by the midday, all will be well. Back to you, studio.
All right, Martin Mara there. Thanks very much indeed for that. So despite the challenges, some commuters actually congratulating the government, saying that yes, this is a good thing. It is ultimately for our safety. Let's, before we continue the conversation, get some live pictures from the county of Migori to get an idea of what's happening there. Coming up on your screen in just a moment, this is Migori. You can see there a police check. A truck has been stopped and various other vehicles as well. As we heard from Charles Owino, the police are, involved in this in a big way, and also other aspects of the Security and Interior Department involved in this crackdown. It is a major one that is having a big impact on all vehicles on the road, whether it be private or public, because of course there is a lot of traffic on the road this morning due to this crackdown, even though we are witnessing fewer matatus on the road. But what we are getting, at least from some counties, is that private vehicles are in fact offering passengers lifts at a fee of around 500 shillings. So that is what is happening in the county of Migori. All right, let's continue with our conversation. Timothy, in your view, is this culture of impunity on the part of the PSVs ever going to change? Because we have seen thousands of lives being lost over the recent months, over the years. Is it going to change?
I'm confident it will change. It's a process and it might take time. And I think what will make this change is if we all come together and each of the agencies and each of us plays their part. And what do I mean by this? Right now, at our driving school, because we do run a driving school, we do teach customer service as an essential part for any PSV driver or any PSV conductor. We do teach defensive driving. We do teach, things that are just beyond moving the vehicle, because a lot of us on the road can move the vehicle from point A to point B. And if you're put in a football field, you can do that quite easily. But again, it is how you do that in relation to the other road users, taking into consideration their safety and your safety as well. So I do believe that this is going to change. We have done a number of programs, and we've been reaching out to all the other parties that would help us to be able to achieve this. We have started doing that with some of the PSVs, and the results are amazing. We have trained a number of them on a program we call Musamaria Mwema, where we train them on first aid, we train them on customer service, we train them, and then we've also gone ahead to say, let's train them, some of them, to be trainers of other, so that we can multiply that effect to other people. And the reason we're doing that is because we imagine that even in the event of an accident, the first people to get on that scene most likely will be the matatu. So we need the matatu driver, the matatu conductor knowing what to do in the event of an emergency, in the event of an accident, and they need to save lives and do what is necessary. We've also gone ahead to say, let's teach them customer service, because sometimes most people would complain about being mishandled when they're boarding the matatus. Sometimes they're not allowed to alight where they're supposed to alight, and a lot of other things that have been happening. So if we could all put our effort together, all the agencies together, we would be able to see a culture change coming out of that. Another program that we are beginning is to begin to teach these things from a very early age, in what we're calling junior membership, from primary school. And why this is important is because anytime you tell your child, I have a small daughter, and I told her once that I'm not supposed to go, they kept saying, we want you to go past that car. We want it to be, we want daddy to be the best. Yeah. So I told her, I can't do that, because when I go past this speed, I'll be breaking the law. That's stuck into their mind. Right. Anytime I'm driving and they see the speedometer almost getting there, they tell me, Daddy, you're about to break the law. Right. So in and of themselves, they become a deterrent for me. Right. And I'm trying to imagine that child grows up knowing that this is the right thing to do. So I think it gets to a point whereby, as a country, we must decide this is the right thing to do, and we rise up and do it. Okay.
Speaking about the right thing to do, we've received some new fare rates that we're getting from our correspondents on the ground. Migori to Kisumu, 800 shillings from 500. Migori to Kendu Bay, 600 shillings from 400 shillings. Migori to Homa Bay, 500 from 250. Migori to Rongo, 350, up from 130. So clearly, the PSVs that are in operation are hiking their prices. Is this allowed? And if not, what is being done about it?
I think this is a little bit tricky in an open business, but there should be limitations to what is done. So I think the concerned persons, wherever they are sitting and hearing this, will come up with an immediate solution to it, to ensure that we manage the crisis of overpricing. Right. Ordinarily in business, when demand gets higher and there's little supply, there's temptation to increase the fares. But I think NTSA and us will have to deliberate immediately and look at the best way in which we can manage this crisis. But equally, what I can tell you, we are a very good people in this country, that we can equally also comply very fast. I can assure you by tomorrow morning, this crisis will not be there. I know at night some of them will be trying to sneak in and in the evening trying to raise their fares to get in more money. But I know Kenyans are also people that listen. When they like being pushed. When you give them a lot of space, then they misbehave. But again, when they realize that the law is so tight, they comply. I want to believe that in the next 1 day or so, they shall have complied. We saw the same thing in 2006 when people had to walk very long distances. Right. But the minister then was very firm, and we got a lot of support from government, and we managed to do all this. The only important thing that everyone needs to understand, that this is important for their safety and even their comfort. Because there are some roads you would find that now a 14-seater matatu would carry 20 people. We needed to carry 3, which was important for your comfort as you travel, but we were carrying 4 or even 5 after some time. You need your seatbelt all, and we were not doing this. And equally, this will eventually help us in managing traffic jams. I believe maybe you jump into your car to come alone to work and even spend more money on fuel and maintenance of your vehicle because of maybe lack of comfort. But if from where you come there would be comfort, you can easily pick a PSV and come to town and walk to work. You would be comfortable. So I think many people, if we get complete order, and more so in busy towns like now Nairobi, our cities, what would happen is that more people would prefer to use public service, save on the fuel, save on the maintenance of their cars. So this would have a longer positive implication than what we merely look at.
Although you said that you believe, or rather you assure that tomorrow morning what we're seeing on the roads today won't be the case tomorrow morning.
I believe so, because we have history. It happened in 2006, it will happen. People must try and push us not to enforce and to try and buy sympathy. I don't think it is there. Because you see, these people have matatus on loans. For how long are you going to keep your matatu at home? You have to pay it, or the auctioneers will come for it. And I've also said very clearly that if it takes, let's say, 3-4 days and people decide that they are going on strike, then it is simple. We simply, because NTSA is the one who licenses, they can decide to take away your license for your SACCO. And not only for the SACCO, they can decide even to blacklist the vehicle from that particular SACCO. Who will lose? It's you who will lose. There are very many young Kenyans, I've told you, that would want to get involved in transport business. But because of chaos in the transport business, no reasonable person wants to invest except the cartels. And you find the people gaining are not even the owners of the vehicles. And the cartels all over are necessary people in the stages picking people's money here and there. And that must stop. For owners of vehicles to get more business, I'm sure where they sit, the owners of the vehicles, they're very comfortable. And today I've wondered why we don't have anybody from Matatu Owners Association here, because they are always fond of coming here and saying how much policemen are picking bribes, and they're the ones bribing our policemen. And we are going to have a very big crackdown on people bribing our policemen. We'll take them to court even before those officers arrive at the court.
And a crackdown on police officers who take bribes as well.
But we've done that over years. We have arrested so many police officers and taken them to court.
All right, well,
with support of ESS and the rest. But for now, it would even be more stringent, because we cannot put a lot of effort and then you spoil it. It must be done.
Okay, and just to add that we had invited a guest, the chair of the Federation of Public Transport Operators, but he cancelled at the last minute. Timothy, you spoke about training. Really, ultimately, does it come down to training, a positive attitude, goodwill, and that culture of, wanting to be safe on the roads? There was a driver that I personally came across one time who said he used to be a matatu driver. He didn't even have a license. This was several years ago. Didn't have a license, would drive happily, never caught, etc. But once the Michuki rules came into place, that's when he had to go and get a driving license. He had to be trained to drive. Do we lack big time in training?
I believe we do, and that's by the behavior that we see on the road. And I think training is a very integral part of the behavior that we see on the road. And the question I keep asking myself is, and probably just to throw it out to the SACCOs and the corporates, is, are your drivers properly trained? Do they know what to do? Because there's a difference between being a vehicle mover and being a driver. Because like I've said previously, is that you can move the vehicle from point A to point B. And I think we've seen a lot of that happen, especially the border borders. They're able to ride the motorbike, but they don't know that you don't go that way, you don't enter through this side, and you don't enter through this other side. And that's why, as a champion of road safety at AA, even before there was any curriculum by NTSA, we had a curriculum for learner driver training that also included defensive driving. And now we encourage people, because people who went for driving immediately after fourth form, and after that, it took like 5 years before they could put their hands on a vehicle. Obviously, some of those things that they learned, they're forgotten. And there's a provision for people to come and do refresher courses on driving. So training is very critical. Even some of those trainings that we may take lightly, it changes that attitude. When you have information, then you're able to act on that information, or you have a choice to act on that information or not act on that information. So if we are able to come together and say, can we ensure that all our PSV drivers are properly trained? Can we ensure that all our conductors are properly trained on basic things like customer service, on defensive driving, on the usual things that would require an attitude change on the road, and be able to test them and see whether they will be able to pass that test, and so that we can have some order on the road. So training is a very critical part of success. One of the things we're even saying is that we are considering reaching out to parties and say, if our leaders could possibly even now take border riders and put them in a stadium somewhere, and we bring our trainers for a 1 day or 2 days, at least to impart that knowledge, to tell them, because sometimes when you look at the way people behave on the road, Smriti, you begin to get the idea that they have no idea. They're not being, there is a place of attitude, there's a place of just being blatantly, disobedient, but there's also the part where they don't know. You look at the way somebody has endangered their life, and then you realize they don't know.
So whose responsibility is it to ensure that they do go through such training?
Of course, there are different agencies that come into play. Us, what we do as AA is the learner driver training and the defensive training, and but the licensing comes from other agencies like NTSA. The enforcement, of course, comes from other agencies like police, and we work with all of them to ensure that the people that are on the road are licensed properly. People will tell you that when they come to AA, that they have to go through the entire curriculum. They have to go through the entire lessons for them to be able to be taken for testing at NTSA, right. And that when they're taken for testing at NTSA, they will find that they actually know what to do on the road.
Okay.
So it's all our responsibility. Of course, the driving schools bear a big part of this responsibility. But again, Smriti, you can only train the people who come to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We are approaching the top of the hour, so let's take a quick break on NTV Today. On this day that the transport industry has been thrown into a crisis of sorts, as a lot of public service vehicles keep off the roads. Those that are in operation are hiking up their prices, forcing various commuters to walk to work or at least find alternate means to get to their destinations. We are covering the issue live from across the country. This is NTV Today. It is just approaching 10 o'clock. Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to NTV Today with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. It is 10 o'clock and we are covering the matatu crackdown live for you across the country. Let's take you directly to the county of Migori. Bernard Ojwang, what do you have for us now?
Well, thank you very much, Smriti. We are here. I told you that we'll be moving along this Kisimigori highway, and currently we are at Komire, where we have a roadblock. Police officers have really tried their best. They have intercepted many vehicles. They have arrested many drivers, passengers, and also we are just going to talk to the person who is in charge of this operation, Awendo OCPD, just to tell us so far how is the progress. Join me here, madam. Okay, could you just please tell us how is the progress since you started?
The progress so far is so good. We started our operation at about 6 a.m. We have arrested several motor vehicles who are contravening traffic rules. We have also arrested riders without helmet, driving license, also probox who are contravening the terms and conditions. Otherwise, we are still continuing on with our operation, and we caution all drivers while on our roads to obey traffic rules and also to have everything which is required. As long as they will comply with the rules and what is expected of them, we have no problem with them. Otherwise, we are very tight, we are strict, forwarding forward, as now the movement is very many. Schools are closed. We are approaching Christmas. We are very strict on our roads. So we caution our drivers and whoever is on the road, using the road, to comply with traffic rules.
Okay, so far how many people have you arrested?
So far we have arrested more than 10 people with different offenses. Yes.
Could you just please allow one offense?
Excess drivers carrying excess passengers, and also passengers being excess in the motor vehicles. Yes.
And the operation continues?
It continues even tomorrow. It will continue for almost a month. Yeah, until we make sure sanity is brought into our roads.
Are you also targeting border operators?
Yeah, we have arrested riders. We have arrested riders who have no element, carrying more than one person, pellet, and so on. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. I was speaking there to Awendo PD, speaking there, saying that they are here to make sure that whoever is going against traffic laws is arrested. And she's telling me that they have arrested almost 10 culprits, and they are now at Awendo police station. And they have also intercepted many vehicles. Remember, we'll be moving along this road from here. We are heading to Rongo, whereby Rongo OCPD is also is with these people doing the operation. We'll be giving you more updates as they unfold. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Bernard Ojwang, coming to us live from Migori County. Now, things like wearing a helmet while riding a motorbike or wearing a seatbelt in a vehicle should be the norm. Anyone in that situation should want to get in a car and strap on for their own safety, but they don't. Why not? Is it a case that people perhaps don't care, or is it because they don't think it's important, or because they don't actually know what the law is? What's your take?
There are several reasons. One common reason would be the seatbelts are dirty, because you would not want to put such a clean cloth on a dirty seatbelt, and that would be one reason why members of the public. Number two, when it's meant for 3 people and you are carrying 4 or 5, then how are you going to wear your seatbelt? Right. But also it's a common problem, because even us in our own personal cars, where you have clean seatbelts and you have a space, you are seated alone, many of us again do not belt, because of the way you have been socialized. How have you been brought up? How have you grown? Have you grown up used to a certain practice? Because socialization is a very important aspect of what you do. And that is why he said that his daughters wanted to see him rave, but when he told them it was not right, then, because children learn very, very easily. So if you've been brought up not putting on seatbelts, some of us were brought up in families where there are no cars. So maybe the first car you had is your own car.
Right.
So you are poorly socialized. But with time, if you are compliant, you ought to learn that you need to put on your seatbelt. So, for example, even helmets on motorbikes. Many people who die on motorbike accidents, they die after falling down on the tarmac. You hit your head, and it breaks. So having a helmet is very, very important, and maybe having one pigeon passenger and having a reflector. And also what he said, that most people just get, I know of people buying motorbikes, and then they give them to young people who have never gone through road safety measures. So he can ride, but he just comes from a feeder road to a main road without checking. We have had so many riders losing their lives because they have totally no training at all, especially at the village level. So I think these are things that should be encouraged so that we help one another to make things easy. We should not just be carrying cane all over everywhere, appearing that a policeman is just somebody who is tough, who is supposed to fight with people. No, we need to learn to grow to be compliant so that we get organized.
All right, and just to bring our viewers up to speed, the pictures that you're seeing on your screen are from earlier this morning. Timothy, when we talk about the Michuki rules, how successful were they several years ago when they were initially implemented?
They were very successful. I remember that day I walked for about 7 kilometers. But even as I walked, I felt that this is the right thing to do. And I remember the people I were with were telling me, no, you wait, tomorrow they will not be enforcing them. But I told them, no, I have to go today, and I don't think this will change. I think, first of all, we need to begin to look at these rules not as Michuki rules or the rules for the police or for the, it's our rules for our own safety. We need to think about it this way, that your vehicle came from Japan or whichever the manufacturer with that seat belt already there. If you read the manual of that vehicle, it indicated that anytime you want to move, you need to put on that seat belt, don't put the child in the front. You know, it's already there. Right. What the police is doing and the government is just helping us to enforce what was already there. That seat belt and for personal cars, and I want to challenge those who are with their personal cars where has said your seat belt is clean. Why you're not putting it on is probably just because you don't want to do that. It's not because it's somebody else's, it's yours. The moment we begin to take responsibility, all of us, and at times we think it's very far until it happens to us. Like I said when we began this conversation, for the family that lost somebody on the road, this conversation is very different.
Sure.
They support this, they say, I wish this had been done before I lost my dad. I wish this had been done before I lost my mom. I wish this had been done before I lost my daughter or I lost my child. You know, those kind of things. And some people have had accidents happen to kids because they were not strapped on, they did not have the car seat, they did not, and then they were safe, but the kid, suffered when there was a small mishap on the road. So they were very successful. We support as champions of road safety that this should be done. And like Owino has said, I think in a few days this crisis will be over. Because at times, if you remember, even in school, when you're told this assignment is going to be due in the next class, which will be next 2 weeks, somehow most of us would still do it on the eve of the day that it's due. Right. So at times people want to just wait and see whether does the government really mean what they say. Are they really going to enforce this? So when they actually find out that it's being enforced, people begin now to change the conversation and say, we actually don't want to strike, we want more time so that we can comply. Which means right now garages are working overtime to ensure that these rules are complied to. And again, by the end of the day, it's for the safety of everyone.
Of course. Yeah. Your comment?
I think it's important that we take the whole action positively and say that at least we need order in our roads, we need safety in our roads. Our lives are important. For the period that God has given you life, it's a privilege to have been born. It's a privilege to live, and therefore it's important that our the ages that are productive continues living until that time that now you become totally unproductive, and it's time to go, that you die naturally if possible. So it's important that we take this very positively. As he has said it, it is not an individual's achievement. It's achievement for all of us.
Right.
But lastly, I would want to request all the persons that have been inconvenienced today, that there is no gain without pain. That is the pain that takes us towards gaining. And we hope that people will also not malinger not to go to work, to say that there was a crisis
right.
for matatus.
Right.
So I would just want everyone to accept the situation as it is, and know that we are not going to relent on this road safety enforcement.
You say that you will not relent on the road safety enforcement, but then why were the Michuki rules phased out? Why weren't they enforced a long time ago? And I'm looking at the past because
you are putting me in a very awkward position. I'm a civil servant. I don't want it to be problems with politicians.
Right.
But you know what happened in 2007 as we started campaigns? I believe it will not happen.
Okay, so yes. you are confident that this crackdown, this reinforcement of rules, the law, will continue, and road carnage will
continue, and we have a very good team, starting from the CEO of the country coming to the minister. When I talk about the CEO, I talk about the Office of His Excellency the President is supporting us, then the minister and his CS, and even you as media, you are supporting us. We are happy for that, and if you support us, then we are going to succeed. So all Kenyans, even the people who are interviewed, who you would think that maybe they are suffering, they would support us. And if we support one another as a nation, you know, sometimes you go to another country. For example, you go to an African country like Ghana, and you go to Accra, and you don't see any single policeman on the road. You only see traffic lights, and people complying. Then you wonder, we are such a developed, I would say, Kenya in terms of human resource, in terms of levels of education. We are a very highly developed country in terms of Africa, if we compare ourselves with other countries. So what we need is just to kill impunity. Once we kill impunity, we'll be a very beautiful and a good country. So let us team up as a nation, work together. It is not about police, it's not about the CS, it's not about our late Minister Michuki. It's about our country, and it's about our future.
Right.
So let's all of us comply. Let us be responsible. And if you get into a matatu and you find it is full, why do you want to get in? And there's another one which is coming. Let that one go, another one come. So far today, we have only seen much problem on the 14-seater matatu. Actually, it's majority of the 14-seater matatu that have not been plying in most of the areas that we have checked. But most of the buses, including the down-country buses, if you go to Machakos bus stop, you find that they are there, and they are carrying people down country. And what I can assure you, it will not just end on what we have done now. I think we are going to come up even with more innovative measures, so that even in the bus station, the country bus station, we would have a situation where every bus company has an office, so that you walk in, you choose the company you want, you book, and then we limit my numbers on the road. I can tell you today, if today people are saying they don't have jobs, but in my own farm, I'm looking for people to employ and I don't get. People don't want to work. Right. People want free things. So, and I go home, the young men who are my neighbors, they come and they ask you, they want a little money to go and take changa. But if you tell him, go and plow this place or go and weed, they say, Apana, you are looking down upon us. You want us to weed for you. Right. So let's have a culture of people working and people not going for free things. Let us have a culture where you work for what you get. For example, a matatu just needs, a PSV vehicle just needs a driver and a conductor. You don't need a third party on the road. You don't need people calling passengers on the road. The rest of the people should be involved in more active more activities so that we can be able to grow our country.
Well, Timothy, the argument on the side of the PSV owners is that they want more time. So my question to you is, did they have enough time? Should they be given more time? And that the rules are too punitive and too draconian. What's your comment on that?
I think my comment would be that I'm not sure how much time would be enough, but the behavior of Kenyans, or maybe human behavior, is that the more time you're given, the more you keep postponing things. And at times, this has to be done at a certain time. I'm not sure if they've given any timeline to say this would be the correct time that we'll be able to comply. Again, that I think would be for them to say. And the question of the rules being draconian, I don't think there's anything new that has been introduced from what was initially enforced during the Michuki times. So if it was enforced that time and it worked, and now it's being reinforced, I'm not sure why now it's draconian and it was not draconian then. So in my view, it might appear that way to a business person who perhaps today will not make as much money as they wanted to make, and we do understand where they're coming from. But I think on the other hand, we need to look at the bigger picture and say, what is the bigger good for the country? And even for the matatu owner, the person who owns that matatu, they want to be sure that their matatu will go up country and come back. Because when that matatu causes accident and then we begin to find out the body was not built properly and the insurance is an issue, then that becomes even a much bigger problem than the profit that they were going to make. So in my view, I don't know how much time would have been enough time, because the human nature is such that the more time you're given, the more you keep postponing whatever it is that you want to do.
I think there's more to that. If you look at the number of cartels operating in matatu, it's more than triple the owners of the matatus. Right. Because you will never hear the owner of a bus complain when these rules are put in place. It's the drivers, the manambas, the cartels, people who have formed circles, and they don't own any vehicle. Because I think NTSA will go further now in management and enforcement of issues of circles, so that purely owners of the vehicles should be the members of the circles, so that you belong to a circle where you own a vehicle. Because when you have excess passengers, it is not to the advantage of the owner of the vehicle. When you are overspeeding, it is not to the advantage of the owner of the vehicle. When you lose your vehicle in an accident, it is to your disadvantage as the owner of the vehicle. When somebody is killed or somebody dies, it is your pain, because it is your vehicle. I remember the vehicle which killed people in Kericho. It's a vehicle belonging to a very hard-working young man in Kakamega who has put a lot of effort. But I'm sure today, from where he's seated as the owner of the vehicle, we call him Toto. Where he sits, he's going to suffer because of insurance. Because will they be paid if we had excess passengers? Who will pay for them? So I'm sure the owners of the vehicles are happy, and they would want this to be enforced. But I'm sure the cartels are not happy. So the people we are going to struggle with will be the cartels. Right. And once we only ensure that we have just the conductors and the drivers in the vehicles and nobody else, then we are safe.
But how do you intend to fight that fight with the cartels, or at least address the issue with the cartels?
You see, once you have seatbelts, and you must enforce the seatbelt issue, once you have the timetables for buses, and you must enforce the timetables for buses, once the circles are, because the reason why we came up with circles was so that owners of vehicles could manage the programs for their own vehicles. For example, if the distance from here to Kisumu is, let's say, 400 kilometers, and you divide it by 80, then you should be able to tell, even without having a speed governor, that this vehicle requires to leave Nairobi at this particular time and to be in Kisumu at this particular time, if you consider where it is going to stop. It's just like in town here. For example, if a circle is from Umoja coming to town, why should this vehicle be stopping in Buruburu? Why should it stop? And Buruburu, there are other circles which can pick people. Why should it stop at the city stadium? So there are basic things that will be worked on. What I've said is, we only need goodwill, and we have the goodwill. And I can assure you that with the kind of goodwill we have, and the kind of people we have, the kind of officers we have, I'm sure we are going to reach somewhere as a country. So you can say wait and see, but I'm sure from where I sit that we are committed.
Okay.
Yes.
And Timothy, Mr. Owino pointed out that the Kenyans that are struggling today with the situation, having to walk to work and perhaps pay higher fares, should perhaps persevere and continue. But really, this is having a huge impact on thousands of people across the country, and no doubt a knock-on effect on businesses and various issues such as that. It is not just about getting from A to B. It is a widespread issue. How best do you think that can be dealt with?
First of all, let me say that it's not other people out there. It's us who've been affected even coming to work today. Yeah. And secondly, Smriti, the pain that we have gone through as a country because of disorder on the road, in terms of accidents, people dying, the cost of treating those people that survive, I think it was put at an estimate of around 5.67% of our national GDP by the World Bank in 2016 statistics, which translates to about 300 billion. The amount of money, if you go to some hospitals, I think you will find that there are certain wards that have been dedicated to boda riders because of the kind of injuries that they get, and they need specialized treatment around that. The pain that we've gone through as a country in terms of cost, in terms of emotional pain that we've suffered as a country is a lot more than the pain that we're going to go through today, and possibly the next 1 to 3 days as matatu drivers, owners comply with these rules. So I do believe there's a lot of a vast population that has been affected by this today. But I want to call upon all Kenyans and call upon all operators in the public transport. Let us do this. It is good for us. We have suffered a lot more pain. And I know Kenyans are very resilient people. We've gone through a lot and we've come out through shining, and we've been able to come out through. So even through this time, we'll still come out and we'll still be able to shine.
How much of a challenge is this entire operation for the police and other government agencies involved?
I can't call it a challenge because this is our responsibility. Okay. It's the responsibility of the police to enforce all laws and regulations of the land. And we cannot call it a challenge. It is a bigger challenge when people die on the road and the blame comes back to us. It is immoral for us. It looks bad. Yeah. Therefore, there can be no bigger challenge in enforcement than seeing your fellow citizens die, people suffer. The implication in terms of economy out of these accidents, as he said, is so big. You go to a place like Kakamega or Busia, or even go to Voi, you find that specific wards meant for riders. And these riders would have been productive in other ways. People are dying. Young people, who takes care of their children? It becomes a burden to the community. People have to be treated in hospitals. And this has a bigger implication. So as a service, as law enforcers, as an institution that has been entrusted to enforce regulations, we cannot take it to be a burden to us. It is our responsibility. And we'll take anything possible to ensure that this is done.
And one of the police officers that was interviewed in Migori said that this will continue for perhaps up to a month until there is sanity on the road. Is that factual?
I would not term it a month. Okay. Maybe the operation where everybody has come out, like today, including the OSPD, leaving everything that she is doing, she can probably do it to a period of a month. But the enforcement continues. Right. It continues. Yeah. And not just for a short time, it continues throughout. Right. And any commander responsible for traffic in his region must take responsibility if we find that enforcement is not taking place. Okay. So it will be upon you. It's a daily responsibility. You choose to be a policeman, it's a tough job.
Sure.
You have to take responsibility.
All right, let's take our viewers to NTV's Sharon Baranga now. We spoke to Sharon earlier when she was around Jogoo Road, but Sharon, tell us, where are you now, and bring us up to speed with what's happening on the ground.
Okay. We are at a stage that is opposite Nyayo Stadium, and as you can see, we have a number of people still stranded because we have very few public service vehicles operating. We still have some private vehicles that are offering lifts to a number of passengers who've been stranded for the better part of the morning. Many of them are yet to get to their destinations, and right now I'm joined by one who's just going to tell us how his morning has been like. Just karibu. Unaweza tueleza jina yako kisha tueleze asubuhi yako imekuaje?
Mimi naitwa Peter. Nilikuwa nimetoka sehemu za Baba Dogo. Nimetembea mpaka town, tunataka kwenda Bomas. Sasa inabidi nifike hapa Nyayo. Sasa hapa nataka tena 100 kutoka hapa mpaka hapa Bomas. Sasa tumekuwa stranded sana. Na tunataka serikali tusaidie. Sana pande ya nauli.
Na kwa nyumba ulitoka saa ngapi na nauli umetumia ngapi?
Nauli kwa nyumba nilitoka around 5:30 na bado niko hapa mpaka saa hii.
Na nauli umeweza kutumia kiwango kikubwa kulingana na venye unalipa kawaida?
Hapa kawaida huwa tunalipa 30 ama 20 mpaka Bomas, lakini saa hii wanataka 100 ama 150.
Asante sana. That was one of the stranded passengers who's still here waiting to see if he's going to get lucky and find a vehicle that is going to get him to his final destinations. And earlier on, we were along Jogoo Road. We witnessed a number of people walking along the way, just trying to get to their destinations. A number tried to, get into the train. The train actually was overloaded. We had a few people who were hanging on the doors, which was quite dangerous. Other than that, apart from the people who walked, a number opted to use motorcycles and tuk-tuks, which is a bit dangerous because as of now, motorcycles are not allowed within the CBD, but we had people who were willing to take that risk just to be able to get to their final destinations. And all this, according to the government, is just to try and restore sanity on our roads, as well as reduce the number of accidents that we've been witnessing in the previous months. Back to you, studio.
All right, Sharon, thanks very much indeed. Interesting point that you bring up there, that people are still willing to take risks to get to their destinations. We'll touch on that in just a moment, but once again we take you to Murang'a because we do have another update from that county. Let's find out what's happening there.
Okay, we are along Murang'a Canal Road where the police have mounted a traffic search. Now, we are joined by the County Commander, Bwana Mohamed Farah, who is going to give us a brief of what is happening along this road and in Murang'a in general. Bwana Farah, karibu.
Thank you. We have started this in the morning at 6. So we're still continuing. We are yet to know how many we have arrested or detained. Maybe in the evenings, that's the time we are going to we are going to add up on how, because we have 8 sub-counties, we are going to come up with a figure of that we have arrested, who was taken to court, who was subjected to inspection his vehicle, and that's the time we are going to give a complete brief. But for now, I can say we are continuing well. What we are doing is to stop with these vehicles that are PSV, see whether they have safety belts, among others. So I don't see why the public is worried, because I know there are a bit of inconvenience, but that one also comes with the law, because if you don't check again, people get problems, because we want to bring sanity on our road here in Murang'a. So we'll continue until we find that sanity has come back to this place. Yeah.
Now, apart from the matatus, I've seen you're stopping even the personal vehicles. What are you looking for?
Yeah, even the small vehicles, because some are tending to go with because they're not allowed to carry passengers, because we realize some of them are getting into small vehicles and then thinking that they can deceive the police. So we are stopping even the PSV, the private vehicles, so that we will be able to check on who is inside that vehicle. Are you also in compliance with the law, because it doesn't apply to PSV alone. Yeah.
Okay. Now, maybe roughly as per now, how many vehicles have been arrested and have been detained, sorry, and maybe how many people have you arrested? Maybe roughly.
Roughly, I must say there must be more than 50 as at now. That's an estimation, because I told you in the earlier statement that we are going to get this figure in the evening. That's a good time we are going to know how many we have nabbed, how many vehicles, and how many people that were taken to court. So as at now, that is a rough figure, yeah.
Is this operation only on this road, Ama? It's everywhere?
It is everywhere. It is all the sub-counties, because you have 8 sub-counties in Murang'a. It is everywhere. If you go to Madioya, if you go to Murang'a South, if you go to Kigumo, everywhere. Yeah, everywhere. It is ongoing now. This operation is ongoing.
Maybe your last words to passengers and drivers?
Passengers, I want to tell them they should not be worried, because we are doing this for their own good. We are not doing it to harass anybody. At the end of the day, you will travel in a vehicle that is compliant with the law. So we want to tell the public that they should not be worried. We are not doing anything to harass anybody, to intimidate anybody. We only want these vehicles to follow the law. And at the end of the day, it is Mwananchi who is going to feel good. We are doing this for the public good.
Thank you so much. That was the County Commander Murang'a, who was briefing us of what was happening. Back to you, studio.
All right, Martin Mara, thanks very much indeed for that update. Let's just take our viewers back to Sharon Baranga's point, saying that really a lot of people out there are rather desperate, that they're taking other risks to get to their destinations, jam-packing into a train, or also more than one passenger jumping onto a boda. Really, Mr. Owino, why would Kenyans take such risks, risk their own lives?
I've told you it's the way we've been socialized,
right?
The way we've been brought up. But even railways.
But then what needs to change?
Even its attitude, its culture. I don't know how you brought up your children today. If every one of us has a responsibility, I have a responsibility, you have a responsibility, the other person has a responsibility. But you find that if we have been socialized in a wrong way, then we are bound to behave in the manner in which we see our people behaving. And that is now where the law enforcement comes in. It was said that ukikosa kufunzwa na wazazi basi utakutana na serikali mbele. So it means that if we have not socialized our people appropriately, then now it becomes our responsibility to ensure that we enforce, we discipline, to make it down into you that you ought not to do a wrong thing. But for those using the railway, we also have the railway police. I'm sure the excess passengers who could have jumped on railway, because you cannot stop the train, I hope they were arrested when they arrived at the railway station and charged. And this has been happening even before with the railway. But I also hope that railway will have capacity to maybe increase more passenger commuter trains to save this crisis. It is a responsibility for all of us. If they have capacity, then they may increase the number of trips that they make in most of those areas that they move in, and tell the public that they have. You've seen the comfort in SGR now.
Yes.
And you can find that, you will easily find that the SGR is full to capacity every day.
Yeah.
And because there's convenience. If you leave Nairobi at 3:30 in the evening, go with the express passenger train, you will be in Mombasa by 8 p.m. in the evening. So where there is convenience, you find that people tend to comply. The other day, people are not taking trains. Today, people are taking trains. So I think with time, most of these things are going to improve.
Okay. Yeah. And Timothy, someone says on Twitter that according to them, impunity will not be killed by this crackdown. It needs more than just a crackdown to kill the actual impunity. What are your thoughts?
Smriti, you know, impunity begins from the notion that I can get away with it.
Yeah.
And I think that was creates the kind of behavior that you see. And I agree. This one event may not take it away. And that's why I come to say we need to all hold hands together and be able to bring impunity down. First of all, before I continue, I want to ask every Kenyan, do not take a risk that is greater than the risk you're trying to address.
Right.
Because right now we are trying to address the risk of you not having a safety belt and something happening on the road. When you start hanging on the side of a train, you're even taking a bigger risk than the one that you're trying to address. The question perhaps could be, what do we do to help the public transport industry at large, so that they also don't feel targeted, that they don't feel that this process is too painful for them? Because the question of impunity, I think, and I like the way His Excellency the President has taken it head on in terms of all other sectors of corruption and everything, and is coming out full force to fight. But you realize it requires the participation of all of us to be able to bring it to an end. It's a process. The way it's been entrenched in our country, I think we need to begin to end it. And what do I mean when I say entrenched? I remember when we were in high school, one of the things that we were taught as we were growing up is that when you become a prefect, you don't queue for food. I think that's where it begins. So that even as we grow up, we began to see leadership as opportunities for us not to follow due process. Right. And at some point, I remember some of the prefects would have even other Form 1 students who would go to pick food for them. They would not even just cut the queue. They would not even be there to queue at all. Right. They would send somebody who would also be allowed to cut the queue. So I think it begins from a very early age, the way we've been socialized, like Owino has said, the way we grew up. What are the values? What are our values as a country? So
does that mean this all needs to be instilled at home, at school, yes, and of course whoever you socialize with? And
that's why we were saying we're reaching out to even the curriculum developers to say, can we entrench road safety as part of the curriculum? Right. As we grow up knowing that we need to have sanity on the road, because it will help. Because that child, when they grow up, they know. And I remember, I think something was there when we were growing up. We were told, look right, look left, before you cross, ensure that this and that is there. Those things, you don't forget them when you're a child, when you start growing up. So it's our collective responsibility to ensure that even our children, as they grow up, what picture of leadership do we show them? When you are the class monitor, does that mean you can come in late for class and the teacher will not ask you? Because the notion that you can get away with is the backbone of impunity. Right. If this enforcement will ensure that people know they cannot get away, and the reason why people did not comply, in my view, was because they thought they could get away with. So when you hear 10 of them have been arrested, now the others will know that, oh, I can't get away with it, so I need to comply.
Right. Go ahead.
You were talking about the crackdown not bringing an end to the impunity.
Yeah, according to
yes, that is true to a larger extent. But basically, with the way he said, the way we've been socialized, I've always said that culture and religion is very important. There's positive culture. For example, where we grew up, we had several traditional culture. For example, you are not allowed to marry from the clan where your mother came from. Neither are you allowed to marry from your own clan. Right. And we were living so closely. So if your mother just came from across the river, then you are locked from such activities with the girls from across the river, right, and the ones in your clan. It locked you, and it made you a more responsible child as you grew up. That's a tradition. Issues of church, religion, when people grow up, whether you are Christian, whether you are a Muslim, we have the 10 commandments. Tells don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. When people grow up in a very organized way, then came in the school, which is supposed to also bring you up in a certain way. Right. So when we talk about socialization, it's very important in all aspects, starting from your own culture at home, positive cultures, coming to religion, when you start going to madrasa classes, or you start going to what we used to call dini in Catholic, and many other ways, so that we grow up people who are responsible, people who respect the law. Any law is law, whether it is, like if you look at the law pertaining to the Quran or the Bible, you find they make you a better person. Right. But you see, impunity now comes in when you realize that getting things for free works for you. Even as a child, we were told if you visit your neighbor and you found that they have prepared food when you are not present, then even when you are hungry, you say, I'm okay, I'll not eat. Because you may go taking, they may have had very little, and you go taking all of it. Right. But if they prepared it when you are present, then you are allowed to go ahead because they factored, they catered for you even if they had little. Right. These are basic things that are very important in your day-to-day life, that you must wake up in the morning, go to the shamba, you see. So socially, the way we socialize ourselves, it's not a matter of having a policeman behind you with a rungu and telling you, don't do this.
So
no.
it really does start at home.
Yes.
At school,
yes.
And neighbors.
It boils into what are our morals.
Right.
What is supposed to be done right,
yeah,
and what is not supposed to be done. And if we do this as a country, then we are able to achieve a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Before we continue briefly and before we close, let's just bring up a couple of sound bites. One from a driver, I believe, in Kiamba, and also a commuter. Let's listen in to hear what they have to say.
Kuna confusion, kuchanganyikiwa yenye imeingia hapa. Kwa mfano, kuna yellow line yenye pale mwanzo kabisa wakati Michuki alisema tuweke yellow continuous line pande zote mbili za gari na nyuma. Alafu kukafanywa amendment, that is back in 2005 January, tukaambiwa tukue na broken line ya yellow line pande zote mbili. Na hiyo ukiangalia magari yenye iko hapa saa hii, hiyo ndio jambo moja yenye tunasumbuana, sababu kuna wengine tumeweka yellow continuous line na wengine tumeweka yellow broken line. Sasa swali yetu ni tunastahili kufuata gani?
Polisi wanasema wanataka ile continuous yellow line, na NTSC wanasema wanataka ile broken. Sasa confusion inaingilia tu hapo.
Sisi kama abiria bado tunateseka kwa sababu hata ya fare imepanda. Kwanza siku ya kwanza waliongeza mafuta, bei ikapanda. Na unajua watu wa kazi, matajiri zetu wenyewe hawajui kama bei imepanda. Sisi tunapoongezewa bei, watajiri zetu hawajui kama bei imepanda. Mshahara ni ile ile.
All right, so there's some thoughts about what's happening in Kiamba. Timothy, did you have something to comment on that?
Yeah, I think he rightly mentioned what we had said earlier on, that the increased fare is not even going to the matatu owner.
Yeah.
They don't, as he alludes, the guy on TV alludes that the owner doesn't even know that the fare has been hiked. So I think it is in the interest of the owner of that vehicle for order to be enforced so that he can be able to, because that vehicle is on loan probably, and he's paying that loan to a bank somewhere. And he needs to know that the income that comes from it comes to me. So he needs to have order around the management of that vehicle. And at times I also begin to feel like a question I'd asked, how do we help the transport, the public transport, especially the matatu owners, who sometimes fall victim of bad culture? Because you find that there will be touts on the road. There will be other people who are not specifically in this industry, but they have tried to engage in this industry as cartels so that they can be able to benefit. And therefore, you find that the matatu is dealing with someone who has blatantly refused to put on the seatbelt. And they have complied and they put the seatbelt there, but there's somebody who said, I don't want to put the seatbelt. And I'm happy because this enforcement goes also to the passengers to say, at times, at least the matatus and the drivers get some training of sorts. When they come to us, we train them about one or two things. But who trains the pedestrian? And when you look at the statistics of the accidents that we get, a big percentage, I think about 67% of the accidents statistics that we get will be either passengers, or there will be pedestrians, or there will be cyclists or motorcycles, or they are, 67% of all. The question is, how do we then help these people to get to know what is the right thing to do when you're on the road, so that you don't get hit? If you're a pedestrian, and sometimes that usually gets neglected, we need more advocacy in terms of being able to get the message out there to say, these are the rules of road safety. Right. This is how you do to be safe on the road.
Yeah. To deal with fare issue, usually there is a table for fare. I'm only going to check if I can't remember clearly, but I want to check if it was still a requirement on the fare table.
Right.
So that if it is still a requirement, I believe it is, then we'll have to ensure by tomorrow that every PSV vehicle has a fare table.
Right.
And then instruct members of the public that if they demand for more fare, just pay, but in the next traffic check, inform police they took more money from us.
Right.
We want to believe if that happens, we'll arrest the driver and the conductor, and the next one will not be able to do that.
And on that note of informing police, how critical is it that pedestrians, passengers, anyone really report such instances to police? For example, if I'm a pedestrian and I want to cross the pedestrian crossing, but I see a vehicle whizzing by and not stopping when really it should, what action as a pedestrian can I take to ensure that in future the law is followed?
One, unless maybe you have capacity, somebody can decide to take pictures or take a video.
Some sort of evidence.
Yeah, of because you see, when the vehicle has crossed, he will deny.
Right.
Many a time. Maybe we can see how to go around that kind of action, or it may force us at certain times to enforce it, to have people post it. Though it will be a lot of work because we need a lot of a large number of people. And then sometimes the challenge we get is the law. Would that video be admissible in evidence when we take this person to court? But the issue of fare, I think we are going to look at it just to check. If the timetables are still a provision, then we'll have to ensure that every vehicle by tomorrow, they have timetables for fare, so that if you're leaving Umoja coming to town, we know exactly how much it is. If you're going to Bomas from Nyayo, we know how much it is, so that we instruct the public that when they ask you for the fare, to avoid war with them, pay, but when you get the next roadblock or the next stop of the police, report, so that we use you as evidence that they actually charged high fare. So I think that would be the only formula that we may use to manage this.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And just as we wind up, Timothy, I'll begin with you. Your final comments on this day that thousands of Kenyans are stranded as the crackdown is enforced. It is a tricky situation for people getting to work, but of course it is in the interest of their safety and security. But going forward, your comments, closing remarks.
I think this is a very important journey. It might be a difficult one to start with. I would want to urge all of us not to take advantage of this and not go to work. I would also want to urge all employers not to be too hard on people because there's been a challenge of transport. But I think overall, I want to call upon all of us to do the right thing. Let's get the proper training for the public transport. If it's learner driving, if it's defensive driving, if it's customer service, let's get the proper driving. Let's obey the traffic rules as they are because they're already there and we know them. And let's do the right thing so that we can be able to be safe on the road. Just for us, not just for ourselves, but also for other people on the road. So let us do, Kenyans, let us do the right thing. We've been resilient before. We've come through shining before. We've gone through a lot of things before, and we've come out shining. We can do this. And I think once we do this, all of us will be happy apart from those that want to do evil. And I suppose that would be the cartels. Everybody else is going to be happy by the end of the day. The matatu owner is going to be happy, the matatu tout will be happy, the passenger will be happy, and everybody is going to be happy. The police will be happy. Once we do this right, everyone is going to be happy except the person that wants to do the wrong thing.
Okay. All right, Timothy, thanks very much. Mr. Owino, your final comments.
As a police service, we are committed to our duty to enforce all laws and regulations of the land, including the traffic laws. There is only one thing that we've done different from what we did during the Michuki rules. Before, all traffic officers were answerable to an individual in Nairobi called the traffic commandant. Currently, all traffic officers are responsible to the lowest officer on the ground, if it is the OCS, if it is the OCPD, if it is the county commander. That is why you see in this crackdown, we have the county commanders who are not necessarily traffic officers enforcing this. So every county commander, every OCPD, every OCS takes responsibility of his jurisdiction compared to what we were doing before. And I am certain that this is going to be successful. And I've said we have the goodwill from the chief executive of the country to the lowest, the last Mwananchi also is supporting us on this. It may be us to let Kenyans down, but I want to take it that from the Office of the Inspector General, we are committed to ensure that the right thing is done and all officers are aware. I only first want to ask all Kenyans to sacrifice and ensure that we succeed on this. As the war on corruption is fought, let's also fight wars on any levels of impunity, whether it is the road. It's the benefit of all of us and to the benefit of the future of our country.
All right, gentlemen. Yes, go ahead briefly.
I also want to call upon all agencies and all partners that would want to work with all of us, and especially the Automobile Association of Kenya, to ensure there is safety on the road. As champions of road safety, I want to call upon all agencies. We have reached out to some of them. We are reaching out to others to come to us, and as we reach out to them, please let's come with open arms. Let's put our hands together and do everything possible to ensure that there is safety on our road. We want to give our commitment as the Automobile Association of Kenya. We are committed to road safety, and we want to ensure that there is safety on our roads.
All right, thank you. Timothy Kelly joining me in studio. He is the head of business development at AA Kenya, and also Charles Owino. He is the director of corporate communications at the National Police, corporate communication affairs at the National Police Service. Gentlemen, thanks very much for your time, and we certainly do hope that this is a success. It is a critical one, of course. Safety must come first. All right, before we close the show, we still do have updates for you from the Rongo bus terminus. NTV's Bernard Ojwang is there. Let's cross over to him.
Well, thank you very much, Smriti. We are here in Rongo town. Actually, we are at Rongo bus terminus. It is a process that started very in the morning, whereby in Awendo town, we started in Awendo town. Many passengers have been arrested, vehicles have been intercepted, and now we are here at Rongo bus terminus. Passengers are stranded as border operators are now taking advantage, charging from here to Awendo. They are charging 500 shillings. From here to Migori, they are charging 700 shillings. And to them, there's a plus. And we are just going to talk to some of the matatu operators here. Just tell us how is this affecting them, and how do they want it to be. Join me here. You'll start with your name and tell us, are you satisfied with this operation?
Kwa machina ni Momanyi Bernard, kama mimi conductor nimekasirika kabisa, lakini serikali iko sawa. Wametupeleka haraka sana, wametupatia muda. Saa hii kama mimi wameshachukua gari yangu kwa sababu sikuweka earline kamili. Picha niliweka ya Yesu kando wa Murango, nimengoa hakuna earline, wamesha kamata. Sasa kwa hii sheria sio mbaya, lakini muda ndio watupatia kidogo. Kama serikali tupatie muda kidogo. Sasa hii askari wamechukua advantage. Sasa hii ndio wanatengeneza pesa. Kitu kidogo na kushika wanachukua pesa.
Wewe ushaomba pesa?
Wameshachukua saa hii. Wamekulia kutoka Uliri, nimelipa 1000, hakuenda 1000, kufika hapa gari imechukuliwa ndani kitu kidogo. Sasa serikali hii sheria sio mbaya. Sheria ni yetu. Sisi ni Wakenya kama wengine. Askari ni wetu. Matiangi ni mtu yetu. Sisi ni watoto wako. Wacha kutupeleka sisi haraka namna hiyo. Sisi hapa chini hakuna pesa. Watu wanahangaika. Watoto wanaenda shule hawaendi. Mtiani sasa watu wanaenda kwa ofisi hawaendi.
Well, thank you very much. Asante sana. Inasemekana sasa nyinyi mnaongeza bei sana. Ni faida kwenyu?
Sio faida, lakini inatubidi lazima tuongeze. Juu wengine tunahofia tukikimbia mpaka waenda kurudi tunashikwa. Sasa ukishaacha pikipiki yako, pengine mtoto kuleacha kwa nyumba anasubiri sukari, utapata wapi sukari? Inakubidi sasa uongeze.
Kwa sasa mnaongeza kutoka hapa hadi Awendo?
Kutoka hapa mpaka Awendo tunachukua tu 500. Sio 700 vile ulisema. Inatubidi tufanye hivyo. Lakini kwa Matiang'i hii sheria aache kutupeleka mbio sana. Peleka tu mambo polepole. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Smriti, you've just heard from Rongo town residents. They are saying that some of them they are satisfied with this crackdown, and you've heard from border operators there is saying that they are forced to do so, and so as at least to get something. It is their day, and the matatu operators are hoping that come tomorrow things will change, and the government will at least do something so that to enable them continue with their business, and also they will at least adhere to the rules that has been put. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much. And from Rongo bus terminus, let's take you to Eldoret.
Thank you so much, my colleague from our studio in Nairobi. This is the main Kapsabet stage in Eldoret, and normally it's a very busy place. But today, as you can see, little activities taking place here because of the introduction of the so-called Michuki rules. Many passengers are actually stranded due to most non-compliant vehicles being withdrawn from the road.
Kwa majina naitwa Masi Chepkemoi na mimi si mkaji wa huku, nimefanya tu kusafiri from yesterday nikitoka Nairobi nikikuja hii side but sababu and I had some shughuli here. But nimekuja hapa like saa 12 nilikuwa hapa kwa stage, nimekaa naenda side za Moi University na nimekaa sana, hakuna matatu, nimesunguka hii stage, kuna stage nyingine pale juu hakuna magari. So kenye mimi naweza omba serikali kama wanaweza sit down na watu wa matatu owners na wa discuss at least this thing ikuje chini wa reduce. Hizo sheria iko strict sana to the wananchi ndio wanaumia. When we talk of pesa, gharama ya maisha kwenda juu, wananchi ndio wanaumia. Sheria zimekaswa, wananchi ndio wanaumia. Sisi ndio tumekuwa stranded hapa, maisha ya kila siku haiendelei.
Faith ama Mama Fani. Nimetoka Mosoriot. Nimefika hapa saa 11 asubuhi. Tumenunua mzigo lakini tumeshindwa vile tutaenda. Na tunaenda mpaka Mosoriot, tuko tu stranded, hatujui tutafanya nini. Watoto watakula wapi leo?
Several people were forced to commute to their places of work due to shortage of vehicles.
Sitoki mbali lakini even nikafika hapa hivi nimekuja na motorbike. Na motorbike saizi inalipisha bei kali sana. Tumekuja na 300 watu watatu. Lakini sasa hii sheria bwana tunaona inatukazia sana. Kwa sasa hivi mtu ukitoka na 100 kwa nyumba na ni hapa hivi, unaona ni mbaya sana, na mtu mwenye ana travel mbali. Hii sheria bwana ni hatari. Tunaomba tu serikali waanze waeke tu chini kidogo. Kwa sasa hapa hivi saizi kukuja na 300 kutoka hapa hivi annex, unaona ni mbaya sana, watu watatu. Na maybe wewe unatafuta mtu unatafuta 500 kwa siku. Unaona ni mbaya sana. Tunaomba serikali watupunguzie hii nene kidogo. Kwa saizi watu wengi wameteseka tu hapa sana saizi.
Police are still conducting operations along major routes leading to Eldoret town. Meanwhile, some operators seem to have taken advantage of the situation and have now hiked the rates. Like for example, along Chepkoilel, Eldoret town, matatu operators are charging 10 shillings more than the normal rates. That is what I have from this end. My name is Gabriel Kudaka.
Right, Gabriel Kudaka, thanks very much for coming to us from the county of Uasin Gishu. Okay, well, that is where we leave it on NTV Today. It is now 11 o'clock. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Thanks very much for joining me this morning. It has indeed been a pleasure. Certainly hope that the situation does slowly resolve this morning. We have been discussing the matatu crackdown and the reintroduction of the Michuki rules. For now, though, do stay tuned. NTV Sasa is up next.